welcome the Orphan the Poet to the Emo Coin live podcast series. It's just amazing to have you guys here. One of my favorite bands in the whole world. Everybody knows this. And I'm just like stoked to chat. You know, there's no we don't have to cover any one subject, but we can cover whatever. And we'll chat for about 30 or 40 minutes.
Okay.
And you know, the emo coin discussions so far have largely been just about like it's a new time in the music industry. It's 2021. We've all gone through some crazy, you know, and then some of us have really tried to adapt and adopt, you know, new technologies, new revenue streams, new ideas, new creative thoughts, just whatever. And so, you know, you guys, Orphan the Poet, like you're one of the best live bands I've ever seen, right?
Oh my gosh.
That makes me feel so good.
So much charisma and so much energy, you know what I mean? And I love going to your shows, and I just, it's like I'm a record producer, right? And I'm like good with tech. So like when stuff went down last year, it was like, okay, you know, there's technology that I think me and some buddies can create that will solve some of the recording issues, right? And we actually were the living proof of that, you know, with Summer Days and the Moxie. Like, we recorded that stuff online. And so maybe that's kind of a cool place for us to start our discussion, because you guys must have been freaking out in was it March 2020? Like, what was that like?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, the biggest freak out happened is that we were on tour in March of 2020. You know, so that was just like crazy, because every day you're just like, oh no, what's going on? It's just like, you know, it was just, you know, it was every day you wake up and it's a question mark. But I think we
getting canceled, like you're in one city and then like subsequent shows were getting canceled.
I think Jake, weren't we thinking, like, we were just wondering, like, is today the last day of tour? Nope. Okay.
Yeah.
Why the last day? Like, it was just like literally taking it day by day.
Yeah, and I think that we were, one of the most fortunate things were that, like, we were kind of close to home when it was happening. You know, we had friends.
Yeah, pseudo.
And we were on the East Coast for that, pretty much that whole run. And then, but we had friends that we were texting that were in Europe and trying to get flights home. And, you know, people that were all the way across the country, people that had $10,000 merch orders they had just put in because the tour was going well. And then they were just kind of stuck with this bill and not able to sell merch. But just switch a little bit, I think one of the biggest things was that we had writing with you scheduled the week after everything shut down.
Oh yeah, we were supposed to go to DC. You know, we were
that led to all of this.
Yeah, and no, but here's the thing. I thought you were. I'm gonna just be honest. I thought you were nuts. And you're like, oh, let's just do it on Zoom. I'm like, stupid.
I myself had you know, trepidation about even tossing that idea out there, right? But like for me, it was like I was talking to Tenny, my manager, and I was like, I don't know what to do, because I really wanted, like, we actually hadn't been in the studio together for a minute, right?
It's been a couple years.
Yeah.
And so I was super, super excited to get back in, and I just remember being so deeply conflicted about, like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And both Tenny and I were of the mind that I should be canceling sessions. You know, my family was of that mind too. It was just kind of like,
you gotta be smart.
Yeah, and like there's like, you know, you run a studio and somebody tells you there's like an apocalyptic virus about, and you're just kind of like, you know, you're also kind of like liable, and like, you know, it's a weird thing. Like it's kind of like a strange position to be in. And
I
had been talking to maybe I had been talking to 555 about doing some online stuff already. I had been talking to Against the Current because those records were both running at that time. And then when it was like, man, I really don't want to give up this opportunity to work with Orphan the Poet again. Like, I really just didn't want to miss the opportunity was really what it was. That's when I was like, yo, should we try it online? Which was hilarious the first time we tried it.
Yeah, we had some speed bumps. I think we all remember the growing pains.
Well, I do think
pills.
It was a tough pill to swallow.
It was a pill. There you go.
The good thing about it though was that, like, you know, in any other setting, we would have had a week with you or a couple days with you, and then we would have went home, and then it might be another year before we see you again. And this was, we're not going anywhere. Let's just try again in a couple days, or we'll just try again. Nothing else is happening. And at that point, no one was doing Zooms. So it was just like, I had nothing else to do other than sit on Zoom with the both of you and write songs.
Yeah, that was actually cool. Like, I mean, like, of anything. I mean, like I talk about this being at least the silver lining that, like, Jake, you and our Eyes band experience, but just like one, having something to do was great because, like, we were locked in our houses, and so we're like, yeah, we'll Zoom that every day. But, like, yeah, like, being a band from the Midwest, it's like, I don't know if a lot of people get this, but, like, I mean, the geography of it isn't great for us typically because it's like, oh, you're going to Los Angeles, you're going to New York, you know, or even Nashville is, like, still, like, a drive for us. But, like, immediately we're just like, oh, this is cool, you know?
Yeah. It was such a I can't like, I've been trying to come up with a term for the feeling of those first couple of months because there was something like surreal about being able to have fun during that first phase that felt like extra fun. It was like, I always call it
I call it the Tiger King phase. Because it's like, everyone watch that, we're like, this is crazy, look at this doc, we're all watching the same thing, this will be over in like a month or whatever. But then, you know, it's like having that perspective, I think it was just kind of, it was interesting, you know, kind of, I think that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, it almost had like a summer camp feeling to it. I mean, it was like the world is ending, maybe aliens are invading, we don't know, but we have power.
We definitely talked about it.
Also, I'm so glad you mentioned aliens, because aliens are on my list to get to this podcast.
To get to
we'll come back.
Mine too. I wanted to put that right front and center here towards the beginning of our podcast because it's very important to the discussion. But, you know, there was that, like, we're in a fort feeling to those early online sessions. There was a lot of discovery too. Like, we discovered the Pro Tools thing didn't support what we were trying to do very well. It looked amazing. I was so excited about it, but it broke pretty quick. I mean, we really had to find a rhythm. But once we did, like, there was power for me in that there was power for you. There was like, okay, we can't tour, right? But at least we can come up with new material, right? Which a lot of people were struggling with. So the recording part of it ended up being like almost like this nifty power that we were able to use during a difficult time. But like, that solves me, you know, and solved a lot of my issues. But that's only one piece of being in a band. So like, what was the feeling of like, are we gonna be able to tour? Like, what the heck are we gonna do? Is that feeling, how long did that last? Was it all year? Is it into this year? Is it still part of the math that goes into how are we a band right now? And, you know, I know you guys just had a really, really successful tour, and we're all grateful for that. But, you know, are there issues that still remain, and how do you guys foresee, you know, thriving and surviving under those circumstances?
Well, I think to skip forward to like the tour we just did, I'm sure David can attest for this, but like, be taking those extra precautions as far as safety and whatever, obviously like vaccinated, all that stuff. But like we had so many friends leading up to that had done the thing where they go on tour and then someone gets sick, so they have to cancel shows or go home. That going into that, I think safety was like our number one thing for everyone at the shows, but then also our crew, because we're traveling. But so it was just, anytime we're out of the van, we have our masks on, and it was very, very, but the silver lining on top of that I don't think any of us realized is just how like, pre-COVID, the just tour sick is just a thing. You're traveling so much, you're in different climates, you're around a bunch of people all the time. You more than not just get sick at some point with a cold or something like that. But we were great pretty much the whole time. Like it was just taking that extra precaution and just having masks on, not, having green rooms are always shut off to just us, like, and our crew. And that was it, masks on at the venues, everything was, it felt great. I felt good not being sick on tour for the first time.
Yeah, I think that's the healthiest I've ever been on tour. As far as just like, never a tickle, never anything, just whatever. But I mean, it could, like, I'm wondering if like just missing tour so much, I was just so happy to be out again. I was just like, this is great. I love live.
Yeah.
Like the PMA was running positive mental attitude, that is, was running rampant in our camp. We were just like, I don't know, it was like kids on a playground. Like just Jake, you and I and the crew being in the van again was like.
Remember the first time we loaded into rehearsals? It was like, yes, we were just like, I'm loading every day. Yeah, I love it. Give me all the stairs.
I was, and I knew over the course of, lockdown and stuff, and I knew that I missed playing live, but like, I think I was like part of the survival instinct of like not knowing when things were going to come back. I was like, yeah, I miss it, but I don't know if I miss it that much. Just kind of like, just trying to like, kind of talk yourself into believing that. But as soon as we were out on the road, I was just like, oh my God, I've missed this so much. It was just like, it was a slap in the face. I was just like, of course, I've missed this so much, and it is blatantly obvious.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And then to tie it to the, I was going to say, to tie it to the Zoom recording and stuff, like to go back out on tour in areas that we've maybe been to once before, and have people that have only discovered us for the first time over the songs we released during lockdown. Like that felt so incredible that like there's people that have like
about that.
Yeah, like you assume that like everyone at these shows is like people that have been to shows prior. It's like no, they had just found out about us like 3 months ago, and shows are happening again. They're stoked, and that's great. It's kind of
surreal to think, like that. Like it's not static. It's like it's still new, and some of our work paid off over pandemic, so that's cool.
I think that's a big point to emphasize, because just hearing you say it, I never thought about it before. And so my question is like, how do you find power? Where do you find your edge now that things are so crazy? And it's like, that's true. It's like we came up with songs in this weird way during this time where people weren't really able to come up with songs, and then those songs were recognized by people that you were just seeing for the first time, a few months later on tour. It's really powerful. It's really cool, and I think that's a helpful story for other bands, because I had bands during 2020 that they wouldn't even get on a Zoom or online writing session to like even try it. You know what I mean? Like,
really?
Like we got to the point where like we're cutting vocals online, we're like doing all this stuff, and it's all remote, it's like really nifty, and we had fun with it. But like I had friends that just the problem, I think, is that the online paradigm itself is so frustrating. It's so broken. You know what I mean? Like you get on one of those Zoom calls or Google Meet, and like I think what was really disheartening for people in the songwriting part of it was like you get on everybody gins each other up. You have that great conversation. That every writing session, starts with a great hang, and everybody's feeling it, and everybody's stoked. And then you get to that point where like somebody's like, "Yo, I got this idea," and it's because you've had this great hang that somebody feels ready to be like, "Yo, I've got this chords, or I want to do an Italian disco vibe," or like whatever it is. Like, you know how it is in a writing session. You're like, "Oh, I've been listening to like whatever, I've been listening to a lot of Richie Havens, and I'm just feeling like whatever it is." And like, I think a lot of people with the online thing got right to that moment, which is actually kind of a vulnerable moment for all songwriters.
Oh yeah, like, that's interesting.
And here's what it is, and then all of a sudden nobody else can hear you, right? Because of the dropout. And so right in that moment, psychologically, the writer who pitched the idea is watching people's faces go like,
oh yeah.
And when you're in like a in-person writing session and people do that to you, you instantly are like, oh, they're not feeling this.
Oh man.
Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there was a real psychological distortion to a lot of people's online writing sessions.
That's so interesting.
I think really destroyed the paradigm for a lot of people. So it's a really testament to the work that we did to get past that, to get to a point where it's like, hey, here's a sound check. Is my audio okay?
Yeah.
Then it's like, let's hang for a while and talk about aliens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And only then it's like, yo, I got this beat. Yo, check this out. Like, and we were able to really vibe and really flow and toss back lyrics and back and forth.
Yeah.
I always cite that one moment where everybody's vulnerable, where it's a coupling of your most vulnerable moment with your worst tech moment in that paradigm, in the normal paradigm. That I saw a lot of people go down, and then there was just everybody hated it for a long time.
Yeah,
and so we had this special advantage of not hating it, which was awesome. And
I wonder how many great ideas were lost to buffering through this whole thing.
I agree. And then people kind of resign themselves to sending tracks back and forth, which is an old model that works great. That's fine, but it's not the essence of really that
jamming in a room sort of thing.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, Matt, I was gonna say I want to give you a lot of credit because you kind of gave David and I very early on in that process, like confidence as producers in our own right of just, like we've been in so many sessions before, and obviously someone that like, we grew up listening to a lot of your records. In another setting, we would have just been like, well, Matt's a producer. He's going to like do all the fun stuff. And then the second we were getting on together and showing ideas, we were like, oh, why do we need to redo that? That sounds great. It kind of really gave us the confidence to like work on our own and then come to the group and tweak stuff from there.
That's awesome, and I appreciate that. And the thing is like I'm more liberal than most producers on that stuff anyway. You know what I mean? Like I just I've really come to grips with the fact that like artists that I love are also good with Logic and Pro Tools, and that could be awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we could come up with some stuff that like may not happen, to your point. It's like there's a difference between everybody being on their own rigs and then most sessions, because most in-person sessions these days are largely like somebody sitting at the computer and then everybody else is looking at the computer screen being like, hey, can you move this one, can you like fade this one, and whatever. And when you're working online, like I always provide you guys the screen, so like we can do that part of it anyway. But then there's like these moments where you're like, wait, I have an idea, give me a second, I'm gonna just try some stuff. And we all had the ability to do that, and you're doing it on your own system, which I love. Because people have been coming to my studio for years and it sounds amazing in here. It's that studio magic phenomenon where it's like, that thing where it's like everything sounded so good in the studio, and then I got the thing home and the bass was all messed up, and like and then you're like, what's wrong with Matt? Like, he hears funny, you know what I mean? Like there's always that like thing, you know what I mean? And online it's like, dude, you're listening at your place, and so when you're like, this sounds awesome, but like it's too bassy, you're like, whatever, I'm like, that saves that like
absolutely
gut punch moment of like, we had it and now it sounds crazy, you know what I mean, like that that's gone on the online paradigm, which I think is that is a plus that is here to stay. I think there's a lot of things about the online paradigm that'll stay for recording. You know, I'm hopeful that we can bring that same kind of power and flexibility to virtual events, because I think bands largely they're streaming like content, like fun stuff, you know, and like interaction with their fans and stuff like that. There's like those kinds of events which will always be there, and that's, you know, that's fun, right? And then there's like live streams where people are spending way too much money and doing way too much production for like very little return, because it's like these global live streams where it's like you hired a production company and have like a million cameras and all this stuff. Like it doesn't replace tour,
right?
You're gonna see your whole audience in the one stream, right?
Yeah,
that doesn't replace like going from city to city and being
I
at
wonder
the merch table. Like, I mean, it just doesn't. And so there's a world in between for virtual events that's largely uncharted.
And I think part of that was like last year, it's like everyone was just trying to cram that square peg into the round hole of like, we don't have touring, so this will be the new thing. But now it's like, if we can kind of have both, because people, I hope they found out like what sucks. Because if touring is back in a way and we're trying to tour safe and stuff, but like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Keep like the streaming, but just like, you don't have to replace touring now. Just like be the other, whatever that is. Be the other thing.
Yeah, and I like that. I think fans are a little more. I mean, I would like to think, at least from our fans, kind of recognized over the pandemic that like. This is how these people make money, the same way everyone goes to their job, and they just weren't able to. And I think like very recently I've seen more bands that will like, you know, one datum a tour will properly film the show and put it together, and then at the end of the tour, that'll be the live stream thing to where anyone that didn't go to the tour can still have that fun concert experience. But, you know, in years past, you would have to just kind of bite the bullet and say, we're just going to put it on YouTube so everyone can watch it. And now I'd like to think that fans are a little more like, oh no, like they put money into this to film it and make it nice for me. So I'm going to pay $5 to go watch this online and have a good time and help my artists
on that specific thing, right, is that I think it's more fun for fans to see like other like the audience, right?
Yeah.
And it's more fun for bands. Like, I found a lot of the live streams in 2020 to look like almost like band practice. Like bands like felt like weird, you know, and we're like,
they don't know what they're doing. They're up there, they're like, there's no one here. Why would I perform?
Right.
It's like,
and the technology was so daunting for a lot of people that it was like, man, just the fact that we are able to get a stream going, you know, we've been tearing our hair out for 2 days, and you could kind of see it in the performance of like this just anemic sort of like worried vibe of like this could go down at any minute. Like everything felt really fragile to me with a lot of those streams. And so, you know, I'm hoping going forward that it can be kind of like a nightclub, you know, where it's like, doesn't have to be a global audience, doesn't have to be formal with a lot of lighting and camera work and a lot of just crazy, but it could be more just like, and me and the other Entangled Audio founders, we talk about this all the time, of just like, can't it just replace like going to the 9:30 club where you're like seeing your favorite band in an intimate setting? They can make mistakes, they can interact with the audience can interact with you. You know, the only thing I'm trying to figure out, maybe you guys have insight into this, is how do you get people, is like what's missing from the virtual nightclub is the social, right? Is like the like, can you have like can you create a situation where people like want to have a drink or like want to like sidebar with another fan that they see in the thing? Because there's so much about shows that is a social thing too. You're going with friends. You're going to see other friends at the show. You're going to make new friends at the show. There's so much of a live concert that is a social thing. That's the only thing that I'm sort of still scratching my head on is like, how do you inspire that kind of social interaction? I'm not sure that there's an easy answer there.
Well, also there's something else here that, like, when you were talking about, like, it doesn't have to be all this production, which I think is true, but what I'm thinking about is, like, what all sensory goes into a night at the 9:30 club. Like, I'm going there and I'm seeing a band, but there's, like, you know, it's a cool club, it's kind of grimy, it's this, it's that, I'm smelling the guy next to me, so it's like there's so much imperfection there. But even with that, the band is trying to be perfect, but you're still getting this, like, sensory, just kind of just, like, I don't know, just essence that isn't that. And so it's like, I just wonder, I don't know, there's like value in something being imperfect to me. And I think as artists, it is scary for us to, like, embrace that sometimes, you know, being imperfect. Like, we try, I mean, we always are, but, like, we're always, like, trying to be the best at whatever it is. So we're like, let's put lights on it, let's do this, you know. It's hard. It's hard to get away from that.
I wonder if, now that shows are back up, that are happening more frequently, and the ability for someone to just go to see a band live is more prevalent, that, like, the live stream concept, almost like when we were growing up, David, I don't know the amount of, like, band DVDs I had, like, from, like, a tour or whatever. Like, I wonder if it becomes more like that, where, you know, you're getting the behind the scenes, you're getting this, but it's still an event that you're paying for to watch, much in the same way you would have bought the DVD. I've so many Blink-182 and Green DVDs growing up that, like, maybe it's a little bit more of that now, that where, like, in years past you would just thrown it on YouTube and then you wouldn't have made any money off it.
It's more like a special.
A movie.
Than a live. Yeah, it's like some of our favorite comics. They're doing specials that are more like variety shows that aren't necessarily all live or done at the same time, but they put it up as a special, you know. That's what
it's such a good point, because I had a lot of that content when I was a kid too. I had a lot of DVDs and VHS tapes and stuff like that. And you're right, there would be some in the studio footage, some show, some behind the scenes, some interview stuff. And so what might be fascinating for fans, because I'm thinking it should still be a live show, but maybe the pacing of some of that content should be at the beginning. There's all this lead up, right? There's like, I'm in my hometown, like, that's the restaurant that I used to go to with my homies, and, like, there's, like, that stuff starts, and then there's, like, some band practice or some studio footage, and then it's like we get to the show, and then there's a show
to the live aspect. I
really like that, because
a blend
that gives fans a whole, you know, thing to really immerse, because it's being immersed. Like, when you talk about the mistakes at a concert, that totally lights me up, because that's what I've been thinking about for the last 2 years, is, like, everybody had these rose-colored glasses about, like, what shows were like, and we miss shows, and we miss everything, we miss and I was like, but it was really tough. That's a tough life. Like, shows are always really difficult, and things are always going wrong, and guitar strings are always breaking. And you're right, because it's about the things that the band does in those improvised moments to compensate for the room being too hot, or the PA being blown, or you know, somebody just puked, you know, or just like, you know what I mean?
Just throw it up.
I mean, and the whole floor clears, and you're just like, like, shit, what do I do? You know what I mean? Like, there's just this whole, like, improvised dance that happens at a concert that, like, especially club shows, you know what I mean? Like, because I'm referencing the show that I saw you guys at recently. I was at the LA show on the
Rockin' Lounge.
And it was just electric, and it was the songs felt amazing. Everything sounded incredible. Like, I hadn't seen you guys perform with Chris yet. Chris is an amazing drummer.
Oh,
like,
Christian's
I was
so
just,
good.
like, blown away by all this stuff. And so, like, this is awesome. And then as I evaluated it later, I was like, well, it wasn't just about the music. It was about, like, David was on a chair, and then he was like doing all this crazy stuff, and there was all this talking about like how you had new shoes and stuff like that, and it's like, I know that you're tuning, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I know what's going on, right? Or that somebody broke a string or something like that. But like, you guys do such a good job of bantering through that, of putting up that wall of like, everything was planned. Yeah, we're just here talking about our new shoes, and we actually did buy drumsticks.
Yeah.
He didn't break one and isn't backstage borrowing one from the other. That's not happening right now. Like, we're just talking about our shoes, you know, or like whatever.
You should have been at the was it Salt Lake, Jake, where we blew
Salt
up
Lake,
the PA? Like,
the PA blew in the middle.
We shut the club down. Like, it was just
that's like, the live stream event.
Yes, like, okay,
you're seeing the whole band gather as one to like figure out what fuse is blown. Like,
dude, also it's weird because it happened on beat. At first, I think people were like, "It's part of the show."
It really did, yeah.
It was wild. It was wild.
How long did it take you to get things back up and running?
It felt about like 45 minutes, but it was probably more like 5. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love.
Oh man. Thankfully, that was probably one of the best shows of the tour too, because everyone was just like stoked when it happened. Also, like, it was like, I think people like were so, they hadn't been to a show in so long that they were like living for that.
Whatever.
That happened.
Also, we recorded that show, and so we listened to it back. We're like, yep. Like, you just hear the what the hell?
The drums kind of still going in the background.
That's priceless.
We got to release that. We got to put that up.
I mean, I do think that that's part of the fun. Those were all my stories growing up. I'd be like, oh yeah, I went to see the Cult, and like, you know, the dude's Ian's voice was like half gone, so he sang like different melodies, and I was like, wow, it's like, it was a unique event. Like, I grew up in kind of like a era where shows were a little bit different. They were these unique events, and people would jam, and things were just looser, you know what I mean? But you never knew what you were going to get, especially with like really jammy bands. Like, you just never knew. Like, I just never knew what was going to happen, and there was something really fun about that. And of course, the things, you know, things evolve, and shows have been more regulated, and the way the set goes, and that there's you know, sort of like a pattern and something to follow, which is totally fine. But I think that kinetic energy of just like people just being on their toes and being like, oh my god, I can't believe this is going on, I have to have a smile on my face, you know? That kind of energy is so crucial.
We always talk about, even like, you know, when we're thinking about our show and putting set lists together and stuff like that, like, the conversation that David and I have had so frequently is your favorite anyone's favorite concert moments as a child, or like at any point, like anyone's favorite concert moment is rarely, if ever, they sounded good. Like, it's like like playing your songs good and having sounding good live is that's like baseline level. Like, you know, everyone's favorite concert moment or thing they look back on from their first show is like, oh, we climbed up on this thing or whatever, and like kind of creating those moments is like something that I think we take pride in, or at least I watch David do while I'm playing bass next to him.
It's something you guys both do really well, and it's such a fair point, and it really does get to the essence of what I think is so special and was so cherished. So you guys felt like, oh my god, it's so great to be back, that it's like this elated, awesome feeling. Did you feel that from audiences as well?
Oh, absolutely. Like, it felt like, I mean, like, one, our relationship with our fans, we have like a core group of fans that like we are very close with, and you know, we have a Discord where we try and talk with them all the time, and just like being able to get back out there and see the people that we've been chatting with, you know, trying to stay connected with for the past, you know, year or whatever, and being back out, it's just like, it's been amazing, you know. And like, so like, I think again, it's like the same way that I felt like just the act of performing was like seeing a long lost friend, like seeing those fans. It felt the same way. Just like we've missed each other so much. We both needed this, you know?
Yeah, there's a community thing there, and that is part of just in general what's been at stake during pandemic is, and I had this discussion with a good friend. It's like, how do you develop a sense of community, you know, during these strange, weirdo times, and you know, without being like a crazy person, you know, without like just completely ignoring what's going on. I mean, that's right. Fine.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people who have just been like, screw it, I'm going to take my chances because I just need to have my fun. That's fine. That's one category. I get it. But like, there's also, I think, a new paradigm developing of responsible fun and responsible, like,
totally
be out of control with just a couple of guidelines, and that, you know, you guys really prove that. And it's so fascinating what you're saying about it being actually like the healthiest tour ever because you're wearing masks so much. That happened like in schools and stuff like that too. Like really? All those other things like the flu and like the common cold, like last year a lot of that stuff was down just because
I bet,
masks. And then you know, there was that honeymoon period over the summer. This is right before your tour, but there was that honeymoon period where people started getting vaccinated, and there was like, I was like walking into stores without a mask and like stuff.
This is great.
Yeah, for like a month, you know.
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
And which was I had a feeling it was temporary, but it was a really nice feeling. And I just remember like being like wow, like there is a way here to still feel like free, right? But also be responsible. But
totally,
after that honeymoon period, right, a lot of people got like common cold and flu, like, and I had all these discussions with people being like, yeah, like everybody took their masks off, so all that other stuff, all that other germy stuff kind of came back too. It's just fascinating to look at the different things that have just been so like eye-popping over the last couple of years and like be like, oh my god. So for the podcast, we've got about 5 minutes left, right?
Okay.
I wanted to like just ask you guys, like, outside the box, like, there's all this other stuff being discussed in terms of future music business, right? Like, are you looking at NFTs? Are you looking at crypto? Are you looking at like just some of these, you know, virtual events like we already covered? Like when you're really thinking about it, because you guys are a hardworking rock and roll band, right? That like you've had to fight for everything that you've achieved. It's been a really, really long, powerful road of building relationships and building rapport with your fan base and really building trust and building a sound. Like, you've put so much work into that, right? So it has to be on your mind, like, okay, traditionally I was looking to get the number one single and the best tour and all that stuff you're still striving for, right? That's all, you know, in motion, and that's part of the DNA of your band. You've had the one powerful weapon, which was our ability to record while we were in lockdown and create opportunities that way. There's a lot of new stuff being talked about that seems like it has promise. When you guys are really being honest and really having those tough conversations, is there anything that you're looking at that you're like, and it can even just be like, is the Discord community, like, is that something that you wouldn't have done, but that's been really powerful? Like, what kind of new technologies are looking like they have promise?
Well, I think
oh, go ahead. I think we're probably about to say the same thing. So
what I was going to say is, like, I think it's a super exciting time. And, like, just because, like, there are, you know, mechanisms, like you said, Matt, like there's this new NFT community, there's this crypto thing, there's things like Discord. So I do think that like something that we try and do is just kind of keep, I don't know, like aware of what that bleeding edge of music and technology and how that kind of comes together. I was listening to someone talk about it, and like, I mean, I've like basically what I've been trying to do is just like not get left behind, because like there's so much stuff to know about this, you know, like this like emerging stuff. So like it's super interesting. It appeals to my nerddom, like the nerd in me. So like I really like it. But yeah, I think it's just really, it's a really exciting time to be creative.
Yeah, I think the Discord has been something that like it's interesting, like hearing everyone talk about Discord now, because I think we were a little lucky in being early on it. Mostly like David and I didn't create our Discord. Like our fans started a Discord so they could talk to one another.
Wow. And then they let us join.
Yeah, and then they let us join. And
cool.
and it's and watching it grow has been such a cool thing. And you know, there's all these different social media platforms or whatever, but at the end of the day, like most artists, we get like, you know, the algorithm is our worst enemy in most regards. And the fact that we can just like have like normal conversations about whatever weird topping David's putting on his pizza and everyone hates it in our Discord, and just kind of keep those conversations going and have those people like talk to each other, seeing people meet, and then, you know, as shows pick back up, saying, hey, I'm going to this show. Who else is going to this show? And then they're going to meet up, and they're going to, you know, be, you know,
literally yesterday, we like one of the individuals in our Discord was just super hyped up, and they couldn't wait to tell us. They said, guys, I passed my driving test. And just like real life, just friend stuff. And the community's just like, you're awesome, blah, blah, blah. Let's drive to shows together. Yeah. Let's road trip to shows. So it's just like, even just small, just seeing like friendships being made among fans is just like, I don't know. I just love that, because that's community.
Yeah.
You know?
Truly having a community. Yeah. The like, you know, back maybe when we were kids, it was more like street teams and stuff like that. But this is a little more. It just feels like more of a close knit community, and to have them be also so accepting when new people join. It's like, you know, anytime there's like the little like welcome thing that happens when a new person joins, the amount of people that aren't David and I that are just immediately like, welcome, here's what you need to know, here's what you missed, like, it's so cool.
I love that.
That is cool. Yeah, man, it's interesting because you just answered my question about the virtual nightclub, right? Which is like, that is that social thing, right? Where like for me, like being a hardcore kid, like, and going to those early hardcore shows, that was my group, you know what I mean? Those were my friends, and I knew who I was going to see at the Safari Club on Saturdays, you know what I mean? Like I knew, and it was an event, and it was fun, and I rolled up in my mom's car or something like that, just like, you know, the person in the Discord that just got their driver's test, like there was that draw. So it's amazing that your fans have seeked that out from each other and from your guys' group as like we belong to this because we love the Orphan the Poet, and hey, isn't it cool that we can roll to a show together, and you know, what else are you listening to, or just like whatever it is, you know. I think there is something really powerful about that, so that's really, really cool. And before we wrap, I just wanted to segue wild, right? Just wild, because we haven't covered it yet, and I just wanted to get your guys' take on this, because our audience may not know, but we like to talk about like a lot of fun stuff in our recording sessions, right? And one of our big topics is aliens. Now, since last year, there's been a lot of like disclosure stuff. Like a lot of stuff's gotten confirmed. Like, what's your guys' latest thought on like are we all about to be abducted? Like, is, you know,
well, I have a question. Has it been discussed in the emo coin community the true parallel between like Blink 182 and Alien stuff being released yet? I just like the fact that we all grew up watching Tom DeLonge talk about all this alien stuff, and then like all this stuff that's being disclosed and like released to the public is through him.
I know.
It's incredible.
It's crazy.
Because okay, so riddle me this, right? Like, everybody thought he went crazy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was always talking aliens exist and all that stuff, and it was always just like fun. And then everybody thought he just like went nuts when he left Blink, and he was like talking about aliens and talking about all this crazy stuff. I remember seeing the To the Stars like video, like the first infomercial. It was like a 10-minute thing, right? And I was like ready to just laugh. Like, I was like so ready to be like, oh my god, like here he is with all these like ex-government officials, and like it's gonna be really foolish. And I remember I was here with I think Under Oath was here at the time, so it was like 2017 when we were doing Erase Me, and we were all ready to be like, you know what I mean?
Of course.
And like Chris from Under Oath was slated to be like a pilot. Like, that was like a big thing. He's too tall. And
I was gonna say, he's too big. He can't get in a plane.
He's too big. It's one of his honestly, it's one of his, he disclosed to me, I hope it's okay to say, but it's like one of his things that he's like bummed about, that he was too big to be like a fighter pilot. And so we were watching it and we were just like, sign us up, like this is
exactly.
And then Tom was still largely discredited at that point.
Yeah.
Remember, they are the ones who like put the video up, and it was like, nah, it's fake and whatever. And then 6 months later, and it was during kind of last year and this year, like, it was like, no, actually, those are real craft. You guys are legit. And so Tom DeLonge all of a sudden is the most credible alien researcher on the planet.
It's crazy. Like,
so that in and of itself, to your guys' point, is like an emo victory, right? You know, it's like,
truly,
it's a very big tie between emo and aliens, you know. And then for me, it's interesting because a lot of the disclosures have come under the radar because, you know, the mainstream conversation is about the pandemic and
they kind of just trickle them out, don't they? They just say like, oh yeah, like of course we recovered craft not of this earth. What? Yeah. What?
I would ask the question, is because it was like kind of coming from Tom DeLonge the reason it got more, you know, traffic than it would have without. Like, the second that stuff, like, they try to slip it under the radar saying, oh no, actually this was true, and all of us are like, Tom DeLonge told you, like, having his name attached to it, we pay attention.
We have a unique slant on that, right? Because we're all kind of like half joking and half serious when we say it. The actual community, the actual alien hunting community, as I understand it, is very grateful to him because he brought so much legitimate light to what they've been saying for a really long time, you know. And they look at him as a catalyst, as somebody who
well, just him having a name in his own right, you know. If it would have been any other just random person, they wouldn't have gotten the time of day on any news source or whatever. But the fact that it's Tom DeLonge of Blink-182, you know, one of the biggest rock fans,
a lot of people give him a lot of credit for that, which is just unbelievable because they're not seeing what we're seeing. Like, they don't know about aliens existence, stuff like that. They're just like, this guy who's got an incredible platform of rock and roll with like millions and millions of followers was able to popularize our cause enough to leverage the community into some disclosures. I think there's a lot of gratitude there. So yeah, it's really interesting, and it's really powerful connection. And I was going random with the alien thing, but you totally tied it to this community, which is it's so awesome because it's totally true. It really is true. It's really funny. But yeah, so, you know, it's a fascinating time to be an enthusiast, and it's just the only reason I really want to bring it to light is because we've talked in every song that we've worked on together, in every session, the healthy dose of our time. And I just want to let people know, like, songwriting is not like, the process of writing songs is not like I've got this chords.
Yeah, focus.
Where's that hook? You know what I mean? And it's some of it, but like a lot of our process is like a hang. And I think the songs are always kind of marinating in the background.
Yeah, we got something in the background for sure. But it's like we're trying to create a vibe wave that we're gonna finally get the surfboard up on top and then coast into a song with. But it's like 5-to-1 creating that vibe wave, time spent, and then that last thing you're just running into a song basically.
I think there's something so special about that because it's not every creative partnership that has that, and there's an understanding between the three of us when we're working on tunes that that is a means to that end. You know, that like
it's not wasting time. It feels like if you're like getting heavy, you're like, no, this is part of it.
Yeah,
it's part of the process. And I'm a very, very process oriented person, and so it's neat that stuff permeates our process. I think it's a really nifty thing that we've incorporated, that it's just like, and it's not always just about aliens, we could be talking about whatever. It comes up quite a bit, and it has been an exciting couple of years. There's been a lot of disclosure and a lot of there's been a lot of clarity on what we do know, and a little bit more clarity on what we don't. In fact, I think some of the disclosure is like, we should start talking about this because maybe we'll get some insight. You know, like, what's going on here? Like, this is a triangular cigar-shaped craft. Like, we don't know. Like, what's happening here? You know, it's kind of cray-cray. So, you know, it's been interesting to look at just what will get disclosed when it can be disclosed quietly. Is so fascinating to me, because I think a lot of this stuff wouldn't have come out if there wasn't like this bigger thing that always drags the news cycle back.
I 100% agree with that. Like, it's like they can tuck it in under just the looming whatever, and they could just
100%.
Oh man, I like what you said about the process, because it's just every time being on all these Zoom writing sessions together, all of our significant others are just listening to us talk about aliens in the background, and we're like, it's work, babe. We gotta get to the process.
So true. Like, what were you even doing up there? Like, we were running.
So funny. It's so funny, and it's such like a difficult process to explain to people anyway. You know what I mean?
Sure. Totally.
Yeah. So to explain that a hang is actually part of it is really, really, really funny. Anyway, that's about all the time we have for this podcast.
Okay, cool.
It's been so great to hang with you. Is there anything else that you guys want to plug, that you guys are thinking about, that you just want to leave here at the end for people, maybe even people that haven't discovered the band yet? What are your Instagram handles? All that stuff.
I think it's TOTP Band on everything.
I think so too.
Follow us. And we have new music coming out soon, and we're really excited about everything happening in 2022, and there's a bunch of announcements happening soon, and it's going to be real fun. We're really thankful to be a part of this and on the journey with you.
Me too. I'm excited for all the things that we have coming up, and I like that we have found really creative, clever ways to overcome challenges in the past couple of years, and I'm looking forward to overcoming whatever hurdles we see in our way.
Absolutely, man.
Rockin'. Well, thank you guys so much for being here, and
thanks for having me.
That is another great edition of the Emo Coin podcast series, and we'll see you next time. Peace out, party people.